We landed in Seattle around 11 p.m., got our ski bags, and took a shuttle to the car rental company area where we picked up our 4Runner from Dollar Car Rental. Before we collapsed in our hotel room, we witnessed an RV running out of gas about 30 feet from the pump, and I'm pretty sure we saw a drug deal go down from the Taco Bell drive-thru. After a few hours of sleep, we ventured through downtown Seattle to drop off one of our group at a coffee shop before the rest of us headed east towards the mountains to Stevens Pass Ski Resort, which is about a 2-hour drive. And what a beautiful drive it was. This is only my second season skiing, so I haven't tried that many mountains, but Stevens Pass was amazing. Second favorite after Alta, which is my home mountain in Utah. We went on a Thursday and it wasn't busy at all. There was plenty of parking and no wait at any of the lifts, which in my book makes for the best kind of day. I can ski basically any blue, but I was definitely the weakest link, and I'm really grateful to my friends for staying with me. Here's my fiance who skied his whole life, and here's me. We picked up some coffee at a little drive-through hut on the side of the mountain road and drove back to Seattle to scoop up our friend, then stopped for dinner at a place called The Vine. I recommend the macaroni. It was another rainy 2-hour drive north on the I-5 to the border crossing, and I was so tired that I didn't notice I actually got the peace arch in my shot. Border Patrol looked at our passports, asked us specific questions about what we'd be doing and how long we'd stay in Canada, and then sent us on our sleepy way. In Vancouver, we stayed at the Pinnacle Harbourfront Hotel with a harbor view for 2 nights. We could see Stanley Park and North Vancouver from our little balcony. Also, this floating Chevron station was pretty cool. From our hotel, it was about a 17-minute walk to Cafe Medina, where we had a lovely late breakfast. My fiance and I got the Wolf's Breakfast for 2, which was $36 Canadian and came out cheaper per person than the other items on the menu. We decided to explore by foot, so we headed east, but accidentally completely missed the steam clock in Gastown. It was cold and rainy, so we hurried through Chinatown and traversed a park where homeless people did drugs, but I don't mind exploring anywhere as long as my fiance is there with me. We ended up walking past Science World and catching a ride on the Aquabus from the village all the way to Granville Island. Per person, I think it cost $7.25 Canadian, which is just over $5. I currently live near Salt Lake City, Utah, and we don't have that much water, so any water-related activities feel so refreshing to me. On Granville Island, we enjoyed listening to buskers and just strolling around looking at all the food stalls and cafes, but didn't end up buying anything. I'm really terrible at bringing souvenirs back from any of my travels, no matter where I go. The 4 of us took an Uber back to our hotel to grab our rental car so we could go check out Stanley Park. Drove the loop before parking near the tea house and walked wherever we felt like walking, more or less. The moss-covered trees were beautiful. There was live music at the restaurant in our hotel, but we ended up leaving the car there and walking to dinner so we didn't have to deal with parking downtown. I personally really enjoyed any and all the walking we did, no matter the weather, because it helps me feel grounded in a different time zone, especially after a lot of flying and driving. It was a 25-minute walk to Happy Noodle, where we had amazing, super spicy Chinese food that I forgot to vlog because we were so hungry. To cool our mouths off, we stopped at Mr. Artisan Ice Cream for some nitrogen dark chocolate before Ubering back to our hotel. 'Twas my first ride in a Tesla. On Saturday morning, we walked over to 49th Parallel in a mere 6 minutes for coffee and donuts that I forgot to vlog but got my Instagram story. We said goodbye to our harbor view and drove to North Vancouver for the Lynn Canyon Suspension Bridge. We were undecided until the last minute whether we should go here or go to the even more touristy Capilano Suspension Bridge. I'm really glad we saved all that money and came here instead. It was a beautiful, picturesque Pacific Northwest day with a constant cold drizzle. We hiked down to the 30-foot pool for some photos, hit up the cafe near the parking lot for watery coffee. Then I finally took a turn at driving since we were leaving the city and I didn't have to risk my friends witnessing my road rage in traffic. It was one of the most scenic drives I've ever done and we were so lucky with the weather. We took a short detour off the Sea to Sky Highway to enjoy the water and fresh air at Furry Creek Beach. It's only supposed to take an hour and a half to drive from Vancouver to Whistler, but you know, it's nice to stretch the legs. Our final destination for the day was actually an extra 45 minutes north of Whistler. So we stopped at Starbucks for me and only me because I was driving and I wanted my Trenta iced coffee. This Starbucks was in Squamish, nestled between more pretty mountains. In the town of Pemberton, we took a left and the last 20 minutes of our drive was through this eerie, thick fog just before nightfall. Our Airbnb was this tiny home in Pemberton, Meadows. You could say it was in the middle of nowhere. We were just 4 people, but you could comfortably sleep 5, and there was Wi-Fi, a hot tub, Netflix, and plenty of heat. I'll leave a link to the listing in the description below. On Sunday morning, we woke up to a light snowfall and the coziest of cozy vibes in the tiny home. I could have just curled up in a blanket and watched the whole day go by. But we didn't have any food, so we drove the 20 minutes down to Pemberton and stopped at Mount Currie Coffee for more caffeine and the best breakfast sandwiches I've ever had. I can't remember if this was their stud muffin or tree hugger, but we tried both and they're both so good. Down the street at Spud Valley Sporting Goods, we talked to the friendliest store owners who gave us a few adventure options, and we decided to gear up with our ice cleats and do a short and beautiful hike to Nairn Falls. On all trails, I logged just under 2 miles with 413 feet elevation gain, and it took us about an hour round trip. Very easy, very beautiful hike. I was still raring for a little more exercise before the next meal, so we parked at Meadow Park Sports Center and crossed the street to explore a frozen, snow-covered green lake. We found proper parking later, but Google Maps just couldn't figure that one out. By the way, I have T-Mobile and I didn't have to do anything to have service in Canada, although it was really, really slow and hard to load almost anything. We finally entered Whistler. Parking was $3 an hour and we shared some pricey crepes. I tried Tim Hortons coffee for the first time, and we wandered Whistler Village on foot for a while. I forced the group to come with me to the Whistler Sliding Center, about an 8-minute drive from Whistler Village North, to watch some bobsledding for free. And yes, I got a Canadian McDonald's iced coffee. Their large was America's medium, and it was okay. My fiance and I don't drink, but our friends wanted to stop at Beer Farmers on the way home to try their flights. We got these sodas and ate snacks. Before heading to our tiny home, we also grabbed these sandwiches for dinner at the local grocery store. On Monday, we awoke to another cozy winter morning. We drove to Whistler together because it was finally ski day for the boys. My friend and I ended up hopping coffee shops and window shopping. I mostly did work and, of course, had another breakfast sandwich from Mount Currie Coffee on this cold, wet day. Around 4 p.m. when the boys were done on the mountain, we picked up some pies from Peaked Pies as a snack. After the boys dried up and changed, we drove all the way back to town for drinks at the grocery store and picked up sushi at our now favorite dinner place, Fish and Rice, Sushi and Beyond. We ate here the other night, but I totally forgot to vlog because I was so cold and hungry. On the last full day of our trip, we returned to Mount Currie Coffee in Pemberton for coffee and, you guessed it, breakfast sandwiches before we got in line for the gondola at Whistler. It was the Tuesday after President's Day weekend, which had been blackout days for Epic Pass holders. I didn't ski yesterday because I very much hate crowds and it had been raining on the bottom half of the mountain. My fiance came back totally drenched and I'm not as tough as he is. On this gondola ride, I actually got really nauseous, which is weird because I never get car sick. At the top, I had to take a few minutes for deep breaths to settle my stomach before throwing my body over the side of the mountain on 2 sticks into crowds of people. First, we did a few green runs together in the family zone, which were really pleasant and fun. It wasn't too crowded, but we wanted to stick together because visibility was bad and signal was weak too. Mother Nature blessed us by clearing the skies and showing us how beautiful Whistler is. It had been so dreary and cloudy since we got here on Saturday. Eventually, my fiance and I broke off to take the Harmony Express up to the top, but you could hardly see. The wind was so bad up there I couldn't even take my phone. I was too scared. We took Harmony Ridge down, connected to Sidewinder, and took the Emerald Express back up to meet with the group at Roundhouse Lodge for some poutine. We barely made it to the Peak to Peak gondola before it closed, and I'm so glad we didn't miss it. It took 11 minutes to get from Whistler to Blackcomb, and the views were spectacular. From the Blackcomb side, we savored Sunset Boulevard and other green runs all the way down to Whistler Village. We dropped off our friends at Valet Lumina for a walk in the forest with pretty lights, while my fiance and I hung out at a gas station for coffee and snacks. And that was our last full day. At 4 a.m., we packed the 4Runner, said goodbye to the tiny home, and began the 5-hour drive to the airport in Seattle. I fell asleep until sunrise in North Vancouver, where of course I got my McDonald's. As we neared Seattle, it started snowing, but we dropped off our rental car in time, got to the airport just fine, and the group flew back to the East Coast while I flew home alone to Salt Lake City. I hope you liked my vlog and maybe learned something that could help you plan your own trip to these places. I had a lot of fun and I'm eager to get better at skiing so I can enjoy beautiful mountains like Whistler and Blackcomb more. I'll leave as many links as I can below that might be helpful to you. Thanks again for watching.